name of the company is VanGold. The board of directors is debating back and forth about what clever new silvery name we might call the company in the months ahead. I guess I'll just say right off the bat, that's the only thing that we argue about at the board of directors level. The rest of the stuff is all a lot of agreement right now. So before I get going on telling everyone about VanGold and what we've got going in Central Mexico, let me just take a moment to express my thanks to the Metals Investor Forum for having VanGold on. This is the first time that VanGold has had that opportunity, and I thank that very much. And especially big thanks to Gwen Preston, everyone's favorite resource maven. Thank you very much for including us in this, Gwen. Before I start flipping through slides, let me just say a couple things about VanGold. We are active in the Guanajuato region in central Mexico. So Guanajuato has a 480-year mining history. So within about 60 years of Columbus sailing, the Spanish were smart enough to figure out that there was a bunch of high-grade gold and silver in this area and started mining it. So to Glenn's point a few moments ago, there are very few new discoveries in Mexico. You know, what we do is look at older projects that have had success in the past and try to rework those. And that's very much VanGold's situation. We've been working on a project called Penguico in Guanajuato for a couple of years. This was a past producing, very high grade mine. It was a New York Stock Exchange listed company 110 years ago. So all of that's pretty cool, and I'll come to that. But in December, and on December 18th, we announced a very important acquisition for VanGold, which is our acquisition of the El Cubo mine and mill complex in the heart of Guanajuato. So there's our disclaimer. I will be making a number of forward-looking statements. As a matter of fact, just about everything I say is a forward-looking statement, so you can take that for what it's worth. This is what we're going to be acquiring, El Cubo, for a total of $15 million US. And we're acquiring that from our friends at Endeavour Silver Corp. Couple of points about this, and I realize that this is going to be a relatively brief introduction to everything that VanGold's doing, so I'll be hitting just some of the top points here. The last time that this asset changed hands was in 2012, and Endeavour paid $200 million US for El Cubo. They paid $100 million in cash and $100 million in their shares. So although I think that it is inarguable that Endeavour perhaps paid a little bit too much for El Cubo back then, I think it's just as inarguable that we're not getting a fantastic deal. The mill itself was operated at approximately 1,500 tons a day up until November of 2019, so about 14 months ago. The mill is in excellent shape, and I'll show you a few pictures of that in another slide or two. The other thing that is important to note here, El Cubo has been in production on and off, but mostly on for about 200 years. It's 19 different veins is what has been worked by Endeavour, and before that, Orico, and before that, Gammon Gold at El Cubo. And the history goes, you know, back and back and back, but there's a total of 19 veins that have been identified, mostly fairly large northwest trending structures, but then a number of different perpendicular structures to that, transverse veins, which are generally a little more narrow, but higher in gold content. You can see how we are paying for this. $7.5 million in cash on acquisition. These are all US dollars. $2.5 million in 12 months, and $5 million in US dollars in our shares. That works out to about 21.3 million shares of VanGold at 30 cents. And I should make just one other comment. When we announced this on December 18th of last year, the Venture Exchange, in its wisdom, decided that this was a level of acquisition that required a review, which they call a fundamental review. They are still doing that fundamental review. We expect that that review will be over shortly and that our shares will be brought back to trade. So if anyone's looking at VGLD on the venture exchange, and you see a 6 or 7 week halt. That is the reason why. So let me discuss Penguico. This is our other project that we've been working on for the last couple of years. As I mentioned, very high grade. It was the highest grade mine in the Guanajuato area 110 years ago. What we did in June of last year was to take 1,000 tons of this surface material that was waste 100 years ago, but it does have gold and silver in it. The 1,000 tons that we processed at Endeavor's other mill in the area had a grade of 107 grams of silver equivalent. So although the grade is moderate, it is material that is crushed, that sits on the side of this road and is only 8 kilometers by road from our mill that we're acquiring from Endeavor. Let me just tell you a little bit about the transaction. This is who will own our stock after our financing is completed. We've announced an equity financing that's been upsized on a couple of occasions, that now is at 14.5 million Canadian dollars. After that closes and the acquisition closes, Endeavor will be our largest shareholder. Mermacan Capital is a precious metals fund from New York. They would own 11.2% and be our second largest shareholder. Other directors, and you can see the rest of it. The rest of how the financing looks here, with money that we have in our jeans as of the end of January, some in-the-money warrants, our equity financing, and the proceeds of a gold and silver loan, which was announced contemporaneously with the announcement of our acquisition of El Cubo. So total all that up, and we have 27 million Canadian dollars. We will pay we'll pay Endeavor the rest of our the money that we owe them for the El Cubo acquisition, just under 9 million Canadian. That will leave us $18 million to refurbish the mill and pay for development work to be able to bring material both from El Cubo and Penguico through the mill as soon as August or September of this year. That is our plan. I like to point that out to people. A lot of people, will brag that they are on a short path to production that's only 3 years out, that's only 5 years out. We will be pushing material through that mill by July, August, or September of this year, and we hope to be Canada's and Mexico's next producing silver and gold company. Here you can see a picture of the mill. It's a 1,500 ton a day mill. It's in very, very good shape. Like I say, it was closed down 14 months ago. We've hired the engineering firm of Bear Dolbear to do a PEA for us. That PEA is essentially done. We're just in the process of being able to announce some of the results of that PEA. But those folks were down there in Guanajuato with us in November, and I can tell you they were all very, very pleased about what this mill looks like inside. We do need more and additional and new belts and hoses and filters. The liners of the ball mills have to be changed, but all of the component parts of this mill are intact and in very good shape, and kept in very good shape by Endeavor, as they've had this on care and maintenance for the last 14 months. We not only get the mill in this $15 million transaction, we get an important resource at El Cubo. In all categories here, when you multiply this out, it's about 5.4 million ounces of silver. I don't want to comment on this forum regarding the PEA and what their findings are, but I'll just state that we hope to be able to be in a position to put out numbers which will better these numbers in just the next few days. So I think you can all see a production-ready asset. Yes, we will be creating concentrate with gold and silver within the next 5 or 6 months. That will provide cash flow to be able to expand these operations dramatically in the months and years to come. Let's look at Penguico for a moment. So this is an image, the choo-choo train image is what I like to call it. This is an image from the 1909 annual report of the Penguico Mines Company of New York City. This thing was mined by a New York and Boston Stock Exchange listed company back then. As I mentioned, very high grade, and you can see the stockpile of material from the image that I showed you a moment ago, and that's the material that we sent the 1,000 tons to Endeavour's other mill in the neighborhood back in June. But there's also another stockpile of material, which is in the mine and at the bottom of this shaft, which is viewed in a leapfrog model right here. It's of a similar size to the material that's on surface, but is significantly better grade. This was never waste. Some people, shareholders and observers of VanGold kind of conflate the two sometimes. This was never waste. This was designed as a low-grade stockpile 100 years ago, but it grades better than 300 grams of silver equivalent. Now, we don't have to find it, we don't have to mine it, we don't have to blast it. We do have to move it to surface safely, and that will require some capital expenditures. But this adit level 7 that you see right here, we've reached that and we're beginning to clean that out. We'll refurbish that in order to remove that material to surface safely. Of course, everybody wants to see where and how this vein system is going to get bigger and better. So we did a bunch of sampling, channel sampling in the fall, channel sampling of exposed vein material within adit levels 5 and 6 and 7 in October, got us an overall average of 537 grams of silver equivalent over a 55-meter vertical extent right in this area. That was pretty cool. We then went about sampling the entire 800-meter length of the open number 4 adit level. And everywhere we looked, there was good to really good values of silver throughout here. So what will we do with that? As you walk through the number 4 adit level, when you look up, all the material has been stoped out. It was all mined 100 years ago. But below that level has never been mined. So what we've done is we've cleaned these crosscuts called San Jose 1 and San Jose 2. We will move the drill rig that we purchased and arrived just last month into these crosscuts and drill back into these pillar areas. And we expect to have, good ongoing results for a long time. This is a different view of what you were just looking at. So different angle. We will take our drill rig from here into the number 4 adit level, out into these crosscuts, and then drill back into this vein system. So you don't often get a chance of having a really high percentage chance of success and the possibility of really big impact with mineral exploration very often, but I think you have that here. I will say this, we've drilled 4 test holes from outside of the mine, from right at the number 4 adit portal into this portion of the vein system that is called San Jose. We were going to drill 2, but we hit that vein system in 2 of them, so we drilled a 3rd one. That looked good as well, so we drilled a 4th one. So that looks pretty good. We'll be getting assays back from that within the next month or so. There's a big blue sky target at depth at Penguico. The Veta Madre system is a 30-kilometer regional fault structure that has been mined for 450 years in the Guanajuato area. Fresnillo mined this right adjacent to us between 1972 and 2002. This structure will almost undoubtedly cross our claim boundary at depth, where it comes into contact with our narrow but very high-grade Penguico system. That is a really cool drill target, and we expect to be drilling that within the next few months.